Hey there guys, Jordan here, June 5th, 2019. I want to take a moment and discuss with you my experience at the Contact in the Desert conference last weekend in Indian Wells, California. My experience with what I believe is blatant censorship, blatant lying from somebody or some group associated with that organization, and just some really shady stuff that went on last weekend. So first I want to describe what Contact in the Desert is. I know many of my audience might have never heard of it before or are unfamiliar with the inner workings in the ufology community. And Contact in the Desert is basically one of the largest UFO conferences in the world, if not the largest. And it's been held for quite a few years. It used to be held at an event center in Joshua Tree, California, but over the last 2 years, it's been held at the Renaissance Hotel and Spa in Indian Wells. And the first time I had attended Contact in the Desert was back in 2017. It was actually the very first conference of any topic that I had attended. And 2017 was the last time that they held Contact in the Desert at Joshua Tree. So I was able to attend, and it was a great time. Hung out with some individuals. I didn't speak there in 2017, but it was a good experience all around. I was happy with it. I attended again last year in 2018. This was the first time, like I said, they held it at the Renaissance Resort and Spa. And I didn't speak last year either, but last year's conference, most of what I did was a lot of work for Above Majestic, the documentary. We were doing a lot of filming there, and we had a pre-screening of Above Majestic at last year's Contact in the Desert in 2018 as well. So for the last couple of years, I attended Contact in the Desert. I didn't speak. I was either hanging out or doing some other work, and there was no drama. Nothing weird, okay? Not saying I've always agreed with every single speaker or everything that goes on at Contact in the Desert, but there was no weirdness that I directly experienced, and it was an overall good time the past couple of years. Now this year, 2019, okay, let's get to what happened. And I'm going to begin by going through this chronologically, okay? So about 6 or 7 months ago, this was about November, December 2018, was when I received some correspondence from either a producer or a director associated with Contact in the Desert, and I was invited to speak there. Got an email from somebody, they invited me to speak, and after a little bit of deliberation in my own head, maybe a few weeks or a month or two, I decided to do it. So I signed the speaker's agreement, and I agreed to do 1 lecture, 1 workshop, and 1 panel for Contact in the Desert this year. Now, from me agreeing to go to Contact in the Desert and signing that speaker's agreement late last year, up until the conference just last weekend, I had only ever got on 1 or 2 calls with directors or producers, people associated with Contact in the Desert, to discuss my appearance there. And these phone calls were a long, long time ago. I barely even remember who I was talking to or what was spoken, but I do remember that there wasn't anything that they were really trying to influence me to do. And by that I mean they weren't telling me what to say or what not to say. They were very introductory phone calls, just getting to know these people. They were getting to know me, etc. So nothing really more than that, all right? Important point that we'll discuss a little bit later. And like I said, for months and months, I didn't hear from them. I thought all was well, and Contact in the Desert was coming up. There was nothing I really had to worry about, and that was that. So fast forward to the conference just last weekend. Now, I arrived in Indian Wells, California on Thursday. Checked into my Airbnb, and then Friday is when I decided to head over to the venue and check in myself. So that's what I did. I went to the venue, checked in, got my badge, got the welcome packet basically and the itinerary for the weekend. And then I took a few moments to walk around the venue, meet with some people I wanted to see, and then I left. That was Friday. Now, when I arrived there and got my welcome packet and checked out the schedule for the weekend and whatnot, I found a couple weird things. Number one, I was not slated to be on a panel. So this is weird to me. It was actually written into the contract, the speaker's agreement that I signed, that I was supposed to be on a panel. Wasn't on one. Not just that, but I found out just some really weird things. Things that I hadn't experienced really with any other conference. And with the size and stature of Contact in the Desert, it was very weird to me that these certain things were taken care of. And by that I mean parking wasn't taken care of, at least for me. I don't know about other speakers, if they had their parking comped or got parking passes from Contact in the Desert, but as a speaker, I had to pay to park. As a speaker, I also had to pay for all my own food. I didn't get any food tickets there, which is also weird. You know, every single other conference I'd ever been to, those things were comped or at least supported for the speaker, wasn't here. And I also found out that my talk in my workshop, remember no panel, but my talk in my workshop, my talk was at 7:30 in the morning on Sunday, and then my workshop was at 7 p.m. Sunday night. So, you know, fine. I wasn't really rubbed the wrong way. Actually, quite frankly, I was like, okay, less work for me, no panel. I'm just here to do my talk in my workshop and good to go. So that was that on Friday. And then Saturday came. I didn't end up going to the venue on Saturday. Quite frankly, I had some work I needed to do for some other things, work to do for my presentation, and I was just hanging out at the Airbnb. Didn't really feel like the desire to go on Saturday. And then Sunday came around, and this is where it starts getting a little weird. So I wake up and I go to the venue, you know, pay for parking, park, and I get to my talk there at 7:30 in the morning. And it was packed. Regardless of them putting me at the earliest slot there, 7:30 in the morning on the Sunday, it was packed. It was a completely full room. And in fact, they had to turn away dozens of people. I don't know exactly how many people they had to turn away, but I've had multiple people message me telling me that there was dozens, maybe 30, maybe 40 people that actually were not allowed into my talk. Some people were telling me that there were folks lined up in the hallway outside of the lecture room just to hear me speak. So, you know, it kind of bummed me out. The fact that we had these people pay good money to get to this conference, be allowed in, and they were turned away from a lecture that they should have been able to access. You know, why wouldn't this conference put me in some sort of a bigger room for everybody to be able to listen to me? I don't know. But anyway, people were turned away, unfortunately. Packed room there. And then I gave my talk, and that was that. It was a overwhelmingly positive support that I got from my talk. Everybody was happy with it. Nobody walked out. Nobody was upset. They loved it. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I discussed, because this will help you understand what goes on later in this story. What did I discuss during my talk? Well, you know, if you follow my YouTube channel and know what I like to talk about when I discuss things like ufology and the whole disclosure, battle for disclosure going on. That was actually the name of my talk. I called it the battle for disclosure against the deep state or something to that effect. So that's essentially what I talked about. And I talked about disclosure in terms of UFOs. So of course we have the mainstream UFO disclosures we're seeing all over the mainstream media right now, being spearheaded by Tom DeLonge and the whole To the Stars Academy. So I was discussing how it's a limited hangout and how very corrupted folks like John Podesta are involved. I was showing some evidence supporting the reality of Pizzagate. I was showing some evidence of Hillary Clinton being involved in some of these UFO disclosures. I went back, I showed something called the Rockefeller Initiative, which was an initiative in the early 90s where Lawrence Rockefeller, in concert with John Podesta and Hillary Clinton and some other UFO researchers and actually quite a few individuals, some senators and media people and whatnot, there was this initiative in the early 90s for them to start getting UFO disclosure into the mainstream. So I exposed the Rockefeller connections in ufology, deep state infiltration into ufology, Like I said, I was talking about Pizzagate. I was talking about QAnon. Of course, QAnon put some drops out last year about UFOs. And I said to the audience, you know, this is something that so many people in ufology are missing. Disclosure is already going on. It's already coming from the Trump administration through QAnon about UFOs and extraterrestrial life, etc. So yes, I did get political. But as you know, if you follow my work, that's what I do. And I expose a lot of deep state infiltration into many different circles. This being a ufology conference, that was a lot of stuff that I was discussing. So, like I said though, I mean, huge applause afterwards. Everybody was happy. Nobody, at least that I know of, left the room, walked out. Overwhelming support. Now, I was told that a DVD would be available of my lecture just a few hours later on in the day. So I said, all right, and I'll come back later to get that. And after my talk, there was a lot of people that wanted to ask me questions, still wanted to talk. Now, I had to vacate the room because there was another speaker that was going to talk right after me. So I left the room and I actually went outside the venue onto this grassy area, and I was sitting there with about 20 to 30 people just doing somewhat of like a roundtable discussion, Q&A. You know, I wanted to be gracious and hang out with fans afterward. All these people there to support me. So I hung out for about probably an hour and a half talking to all these wonderful people that were outside. And what's interesting is that during that little kind of impromptu Q&A that I was doing, I had a heckler. I had a heckler come up, and it was a really just odd experience because I was sitting down talking to all these people, and he came up behind me and interrupted the conversation that was going on. And I can't quite remember exactly how he initiated the heckling, we could call it, but he started off talking something about the alliance versus the deep state. He was questioning that, you know, in a very assertive manner, questioning that, interrupting the question that was already going on. So I turned around because he's being very loud, and I sort of answered him a little bit, and we were getting into a little bit of a conversation because I thought he was well-meaning with what he was asking. Now, after I answered his question, I was turning around because it was a answer question, move on to the next format, you know, Q&A. But he kept talking, and he kept talking very loud. And he brought up the doxing allegations. There's allegations that have been going around the ufology community, very false allegations about me being a doxer and illegally doxing various individuals. So since he brought those allegations up, I literally stood up out of my chair, turned to face him, and I answered his question in full. Answered all the doxing allegations. I completely explained to the whole audience there what happened, and I shut him down because these are very, very false, phony allegations that continue to get circulated around. So I felt the need, boom, to put it to rest. I, in fact, even got like a 10 to 13-minute video of this whole situation. And this is when he became hostile and loud. He started yelling. When he kept asking questions, the people that were there, the attendees, started pretty much yelling at him, telling him, you know, wait your turn, shut up, go away, stop being so hostile, and trying to take over this Q&A, this discussion we're all just trying to have. And he started calling people a cult. This is exactly what a cult does, I believe he said. These people are all defending you like a cult. He kept claiming that I didn't answer his question. There was actually a couple other individuals, I don't know if they were there with him, but they were parroting the same narratives, trying to claim that I wasn't answering the question or something like that, when I literally stood up and answered it. And it was just absurd. And in fact, this guy, he even had a press pass. This is the really weird part to me. He had a press pass. So I don't know how he got that press pass. I didn't know who he was at the time. I know who he is now, but I'm going to refrain from saying any names in this video just because keeping it low-key like that. But very weird to me that this guy got a press pass, and he really took it upon himself to come heckle me, spread these false allegations, become hostile, try to yell from the back over this discussion I was having and the attendees that were there. It was just very, very odd. He finally walked off, and the situation de-escalated, luckily with no violence or anything like that. It was peaceful, but it got a little heated there because he was getting hostile. So anyway, finished up that Q&A. I went back to my Airbnb and I was hanging out just waiting for my workshop later in the day when I got a call from David Wilcock. So David Wilcock calls me up and he's like, man, I heard what you talked about in your lecture this morning. And I was like, yep, I went all in on some pretty intense stuff, pretty controversial things. And we discussed that for a moment, and I mentioned to him that I didn't have a panel over the weekend. I was like, David, I was supposed to have a panel, but I didn't have one. And he actually said, well, actually, I have a panel that I'm hosting that's coming up in about 40 minutes. Do you want to join? I'll let you be my special guest. David actually offered to bring me onto the panel that he was hosting as his special guest because I didn't get one. You know, it was actually a very nice gesture that he did. He really didn't have to do that. So I said, yeah, okay, I'll do it. Heck yeah. So I took a really quick shower, got dressed. I went to the venue and went to the ballroom that it was in, hopped behind stage really quick, and that was that. You know, I sported my Space Force shirt because why not? And then we went up on the panel, and David ended up eventually getting into some pretty political topics, say controversial topics, as some people have various perspectives on these things from time to time. But like I said, you know, these are the things that I talk about on my channel. This is what I am passionate at educating the public about and informing about. So that was that. I don't know why they didn't expect me to go there or something to that effect. So we started discussing QAnon a little bit. We brought up the Space Force, President Trump, and the overall consensus of the crowd was support. There was 98% of the people clapping, applauding, happy with the responses. There was maybe one or two individuals in the crowd that were a little upset and walked out. But again, overwhelmingly positive. And I wasn't the only person, mind you, on that panel that was supporting President Trump in various instances and discussing QAnon. There was another panel member that did as well. So it wasn't just me. Panel ended. I left the venue, went home to hang out for a little bit, went back to the venue again later on Sunday evening for my workshop. Did my workshop. I did my workshop not on QAnon. I decided to do my workshop on sciences, Tesla, Walter Russell, etc. So did that, and then after my workshop, this was about 9 p.m. Sunday evening, I went to whoever was handling the burning of the DVDs. You know, I was going to get the DVD for my lecture. He told me there was a glitch. He told me there was a glitch from the translation of the file to the DVD, so my DVD wouldn't be available till Monday. And I said, okay, no problem. You know, I'll just come back tomorrow on Monday and get my DVD. So that was that. And then went back to my Airbnb, went to sleep, woke up Monday morning, and this is where it started getting really weird. So when I woke up on Monday morning, I went on a hike there in Palm Springs, and while I was on my hike, I started getting some messages from attendees of Contact in the Desert. I started getting messages from people who were telling me that my DVD was still unavailable. And what's weird is that I was getting multiple reasons from these individuals as to what they were being told by various people associated with the conference about why my DVD was unavailable. One person told me that they were told it was still, quote, on hold. Another individual told me that they were told that it was, quote, too controversial. You know, I was getting multiple contradicting reasons as to why my lecture wasn't available. So I was just thinking, okay, you know, when I'm done with this hike later on this morning, I'll go back to the venue and I'll see what's going on with my DVD. So that's what I did. I went to the venue early afternoon, might have been about noon or 1 p.m. I got there. I went to the DVD booth where people were buying DVDs from Contact in the Desert, from the organization, and I asked them, is my DVD available? And I heard this directly from whoever was working there at the DVD booth. Again, I don't exactly know who told me this, but somebody working there at the DVD booth told me that the producer of Contact in the Desert still had my DVD. I wasn't given a reason, but that's all they told me, and that's all I needed to know. It was not available. The person managing the conference, producing the conference, basically, still had my talk. I said, okay, this is getting a little weird. I'm hearing all sorts of contradicting things. First, I was told there was a glitch. Then I was told somebody has it, won't release it. And, you know, this was very weird to me, so I started making this publicly known. I started tweeting about it, putting it on my Facebook. I said, this is just really weird. I was told this happened. I'm getting contradicting statements. Contact in the Desert still won't release my DVD. I don't know what's going on. Mind you, I was never directly contacted. I still have never been directly contacted by any of the upper management associated with Contact in the Desert, that conference. Still haven't been contacted. No email, no phone call, no face-to-face conversation, no nothing, okay? So, weird. And then, so I make it public Monday in the afternoon, evening, after tweeted about it, or after I found out that my DVD wasn't available. So I tweeted about it, Facebooked it, etc. Come Tuesday morning, so Tuesday was just yesterday. Come yesterday morning, I see a tweet from Contact in the Desert. This was the only, I guess, correspondence you could say I've received from the organization about what the heck was going on with my lecture. So they put out a tweet, okay? Get this. They tagged me. They said, hi, at Jordan_Sather_. We're not sure who you heard this info from, but we hope we can clear things up for you. All we are removing are the, quote, F-bombs that were used in your lecture. As Wilcock told you, we can't use that word. First tweet. Second tweet. Everyone was informed that we can take orders for your lectures. Currently, we only have 3, so if there is anyone else who wants to order a copy, please reach out to us. You can order the DVD by emailing us at media@contactinthedesert.com. Okay, so these tweets were sent out, and right after these tweets, I started kind of going off on them. I replied to this tweet and I said, well, I don't remember saying the F word, but if I really did say the F word, why don't you prove it and release my lecture in full? I also tweeted about it and I said, I'm getting all these contradicting statements. They're claiming I said the F word. I don't remember saying the F word. Now, a little later on, yesterday, a couple of hours after this, I had an individual who I didn't know beforehand, but she was there at my lecture in the morning, and she messaged me and she said, hey, I actually audio recorded your lecture in full. She audio recorded my lecture in full, and she ended up sending it to me. She went through it, I went through it, and we proved that I did not say the F word during my lecture. I didn't remember saying the F word at all. I remembered saying hell once, and I said the word horse shit. I said horse shit, I said hell. I don't remember dropping the F-bomb. So by this woman audio recording my lecture, sending it to me, we then had proof that this was a blatant lie in this tweet here. So I don't know who organized this tweet or who tweeted it, who created it, whatever. But nonetheless, the claim that all we are removing is the F-bomb I used in my lecture is blatantly wrong. So they're lying there. Here's another lie. As Wilcock told me, I can't use that word. That was the last line in the first tweet they made. So David Wilcock never mentioned to me anything about using, quote, that word or the F word. There was never any talk. Like I mentioned earlier, you know, in just a couple of calls that I had with the director and producers of Contact in the Desert, they never told me anything about bad language. David Wilcock never told me anything about bad language. So when I look at this tweet, I'm like, why are they bringing David Wilcock into this? It's as if there's some serious gaslighting going on in this tweet to make their cover-up even more cover-uppy. You know, that's what it feels like to me, basically. They're bringing him into it to trash multiple people, maybe, that they don't really like right now. And some serious gaslighting going on. You know, it's incredible to me to see this tweet from this organization that claims to be about higher consciousness. The second tweet, everyone was informed that we can take orders for my lectures. Well, me personally, when I went up to the DVD booth, I was not informed that I could take an order for my lecture. All I was told is that upper management had it. So by them saying everyone, that's actually another false statement in these tweets. And then they said, currently we only have 3. I've received a lot of messages from people trying to order my lectures. I've seen a lot of comments and replies on posts Contact in the Desert has made and posts I have made of people wanting to order my lectures. So I would like proof about that measly little 3 number. Now, quite frankly, I think that might be another thing that they're making up. And then the last line, you can order the DVD by emailing us at media@contactinthedesert.com. I have also had people email me, message me, and I have tried this myself with an email address of mine. So if you actually email media@contactinthedesert.com and request my DVD, you get a return email that says, we can't forward this. I don't really know why it can't be forwarded. I think one of the reasons I read in one of the emails is that it was because the mailbox is full, whatever mailbox media@contactinthedesert.com reverts to. But it's really, I mean, there's just so many false statements in these tweets. It's absolutely absurd. And like I said, still no contact from upper management at Contact in the Desert. It's like no contact in the desert for me, right? And all these blatant lies. So as I'm explaining here, as you're beginning to see, there was a cover-up. What it looks like to me is that they're completely scared about what I'm talking about, what I discussed in the lecture. They don't want that released to the public, so they're making up all of these false reasons and essentially almost smearing me with, making it seem like there's only 3 people interested in my lecture and everyone is told they can order it. And we're scrubbing out the F-bomb I didn't even say. And in fact, other speakers used the F-bomb. People were telling me Laura Eisenhower did in her talk. Laura Eisenhower even told me that she did in her talk. So, complete contradictions. Other speakers there don't get censored, but I do. I didn't even say the F-bomb in my talk, but they still won't let my DVD out. Why is that? Well, I can't help but believe it was because of the subject content I was discussing. I was talking about deep state infiltration in ufology, special interests, controlled opposition in ufology. I was asking the question, why the heck do people invited to this conference? Why are people at Contact in the Desert right now working with liars on the internet? Again, I'm not going to bring any names into this. I would love to go down the laundry list of names of people at Contact in the Desert who I definitely have some questions for, but not going to do that here. Just my point is, I was going into infiltration of the ufology movement, the special interests in it. I was discussing QAnon, the Trump administration, full disclosure, okay? I was completely lighting up the limited hangout mainstream UFO disclosure that Tom DeLonge is spearheading and, you know, connecting John Podesta to it and all these shady people to it. I was going into some pretty hardcore stuff. And I personally believe that that's what they didn't want out. Censored in the desert. They did not want to get this information out into the public to, you know, whatever their motive is. Whatever their motive is. So that's that. You know, that's my story of what happened over the weekend. I am frankly just sick of the special interests in the ufology community. Their actions this weekend proved my point, didn't they? And frankly, by tweeting what they tweeted through the Contact in the Desert account, they just dug themselves a big fat hole. They dug their own grave. Blatant lies coming out. It's just absolutely absurd. I wasn't treated the best over the weekend. I talked to some other presenters there, and they had some issues with things that went on over the weekend. And then thinking about the attendees, there's a lot of people who paid a pretty penny to be there. And the fact that dozens of them weren't let into my lecture, nobody was able to get my DVD afterwards, they weren't treated the best either, were they? I'm sick of it. I'm sick of the special interests in the ufology community. That's why I did my presentation on that. I thought, why not? Let's just do this right here at this conference. I'm sick of the special interests. I'm sick of the fact that so many radio shows and so many authors and speakers, so many of them that are often promoted as being the all-stars in some of these conferences, they're so two-faced. And it's all about the bottom dollar and the clicks for them. And they really don't bring all that much to the table. Quite frankly, some of them are just irrelevant. They talk about stuff that happened 50, 60 years ago. When someone like me comes along and I'm talking about relevant things that exposes a lot of this infiltration in the ufology community, that's probably why they're scared. And that's probably why they don't want my lecture released out. So that's that. My goal here is to just bring honesty, bring integrity, bring authenticity back into the disclosure community, the truth community, especially ufology. It doesn't matter. My goal is to bring honesty and integrity back as much as I can everywhere. So what I think we should do is start investing our time, our energy, our money into individuals and organizations that are relevant, that do speak about these very important topics that so many others are scared to, that so many others avoid. Invest our time and our money and our energy in people with substance who are authentic and honest and ethical and have integrity, okay? Just like Buckminster Fuller said in that quote, I'll paraphrase here, he basically said, don't worry about this failing paradigm over here. Turn your eyes, turn your attention and focus on, put your energy towards a paradigm that's much better for us. So I think that's really what we need to start doing. And quite frankly, I don't want to see Contact in the Desert fail. They've built a good brand for themselves. There's a lot of people that go there every year with well-intentions, people that do want to raise their consciousness and awareness and see substance. So I don't want to see them fail, but if they're going to continue making bad choices and acting without integrity, well, that needs to be known, that needs to be shared. So I'm more than happy to go back, but they're going to have to prove their integrity. And in fact, I think any conference that we go to needs to prove their integrity, their substance, their relevance, right? Or we really just shouldn't deal with them anymore, individual or organization. So anyway, that's that, guys. Thank you so much for watching. And lastly, in fact, I'm going to post the audio recording of my lecture in full. Thank you to that individual that did record it and send it to me. I appreciate you greatly. I'm going to post the audio recording set to the slides I did. Of course, I don't have the video, I just have the audio. So I'll put it to the slides I did, and I'll upload it to my backup YouTube channel. If I get a strike or some copyright claim on my backup channel, I don't even care. So I'll upload it there. I'll make a little card pop up here, put the description in the box below, here, wherever those cards pop up. If you want to watch it, go ahead. You can see how many F-bombs I didn't say and all the hardcore topics that I went into that I think some individuals don't want out into the public. So watch it if you want, listen to it if you want. Thank you guys so much for listening to my experiences here. I appreciate you. And how about let's bring back some honesty and integrity into disclosure? Because by that, we will actually make some positive change and actually get that disclosure, that full disclosure that we all want and that we all deserve. But the thing is, we have to work for it. We have to work for it, and we have to expose the areas of society where there is no honesty and they are lacking integrity. Thank you guys. Out for this one. Done.